It's very hard to define a smart city in a way that's both short and gives a good idea of what it really is. I think of it actually as a period in time when we've become aware that the societal challenges we face are acute, not long-term. Growing global populations at the same time as climate change mean we need to think very carefully about the availability and use of resources. There's a lot of people who think that inequality in the world is something that needs to be addressed, and at the same time we have this phenomenally powerful tool in digital technology that's just leapt out into every aspect of modern life and the real world. So for me, a smart city is one that brings those challenges and that opportunity together in a way that creates value for everyone. So I think the challenge of smart cities between government, between private sector companies, between communities, individual people, is how do you bring together the resources and motivations of those very different entities into something that makes sense for everyone. So private sector organisations are generally required to return a profit to shareholders. Government has a duty to deliver certain key services and to legislate. People want to have a happy, healthy life. All of that's common sense, but they are all different things. The art for how you bring those together into something that works for everyone is really the challenge of a smart city. I think there's many examples of us starting to get that right, from social enterprise to entrepreneurial businesses, community initiatives, public-private partnerships. We certainly don't know all the answers, but those are some of the ways to bring those interests together. So in private sector terms, we're seeing phenomenal levels of investment in technology. But as I've said before, private sector is simply obliged to return a profit to shareholders. So some of the results of those investments create jobs, some of them create great new services, but overall we can't assume that they will deliver the outcomes that we want for society as a whole. At the same time that this is happening, in many public sector organisations, the cost base of operating is really being fundamentally challenged as overall society ages. So there are more of us living longer, needing care, less of us working, paying taxes to pay for that care. So how do we solve that conundrum? The answer to those two things, I think, are policy initiatives that shape and encourage private sector markets to reward investment in new technologies, new business models that address those social challenges. It sounds obvious, but I don't think it will happen by default. Some of it will, but not enough of it will. So we need to think about how we create those incentives so that private sector investments and public sector outcomes get better aligned. I like going with something that's successful, and the fact that the idea of a smart city has been around for 20 years now, while terms like Web 2.0, service-oriented architecture, distributed computing, they were huge themes for technology that arose and then disappeared, all within the time that smart cities has still been around. So I don't suppose we'll ever agree on a definition of it, and I think the term will always cause arguments, but that's inevitable with something as complex as a city. But for me, it's a term that's got attention. It will command mayors and senior government politicians' attention, and for that reason it's worth using, I think, and trying to turn it to mean the best thing that it could.